Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. Now, we already made this video right here called Will I Get Sued? I deleted several videos as I was threatened with lawsuits by the lady that is in a paternity scandal with Clayton Echard. As you guys know, look, I don't consider myself an investigative journalist, but my defamation lawyer does. And we have been one of the only channels that have covered what we believe to be one of the craziest Bachelor stories of all time. That's right. It is a wild story. I'm not going to relitigate the whole thing, but I have received a cease and desist letter, one of which I'm not quite prepared to share with you, but I'm not going to share it with you. I'm just waiting for my defamation lawyer to look over it a little bit further. Now, I've got plenty of people, the Flock gang here, that are flocking around and finding out, Flock stars that have looked into this cease and desist sent to me. It appears to be from an actual lawyer, but it comes with a lot of baggage. I'm not going to get into all the X's and O's of what I've been accused of here, but as we know, I've been trying very hard to cover my own ass, but to cover things as objectively as possible, which means sharing things that Clayton says, sharing things that Jane Doe says. You know, she'll send me information, and then I'll report on it, and she'll say, "Why are you reporting this?" I go, "Well, you sent it to me. You know what I'm doing." And then when I don't report on something, she goes, "You're only sharing his side of the story." Damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's almost as if she'd rather have her cake and eat it too. But I have a sweet tooth, and we are munching on this cake. But now we have been told to cease and desist the eating of said cake. Will we cease? Will we desist? It doesn't appear so, because it doesn't appear as if we've done much wrong. Again, I'm going to have my legal team check this out a little bit further, but all signs indicate we've done a damn good job of covering the story respectfully, sharing different sides of it, and not creating any information that would harm anybody. We've just reported on what is actually out there. But we'll get more into that. So stick around, hit the subscribe button. I'll tell you this. It is a challenge to make this content. There is a real risk I could be sued, even if I am perfectly innocent, and I would be dragged through a lawsuit, and it would be a pain in the ass, none of which I wouldn't regret the content that I've made, because I've thought very deliberately about this, and I personally feel, given the evidence I have seen, that Clayton is innocent of a lot of accusations made against him that have cost him probably tens of thousands of dollars that might one day equal 6 to 7 figures. I mean, this money is going to keep adding up that he's going to continue to lose over simple Google searches. And the problem is people don't have their information right. And speaking of people that don't have their information right, we've got the Almost Famous podcast. And now they're not terrible here. They've got most of the story, but they still are blaming who might be the victim here, which is Clayton Echard. Now, as we know, Clayton came out and he had his Instagram reel that was like, "Oh, guess what it is? It's a Friday, and guess what? I'm not the he did that whole deal. And again, who are we to judge how someone reacts when they feel they are vindicated? Now, Jane Doe said, well, the test isn't over. She was scheduled to retake the test that initially showed no signs of fetal DNA. Didn't take that test right away, went to her neurologist, was having seizures, as she alleges, and then afterwards said she was going to retake the test. The results were supposed to come in yesterday. We haven't seen those yet. My guess is Clayton will get those results and talk about them as they arrive. I am scheduled, can you believe this, to meet with Clayton tomorrow for an episode of Driving with Dave. I can't promise we'll have a lot to discuss regarding this case, as it is reaching the point where we have to be careful what is actually said. But trust me when I say this, I will be discussing this cease and desist today on the Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal. I gotta generate new Patreon members, because there is a actual fear that people will silence me on this channel. That is a fear that exists. I am not stoking anything up. I sort of poked the bear a few days ago and said, you know what, I'm going to re-upload all of these videos that I have here. I've got all of the videos here in a playlist. I said, I'm going to re-upload them. I'm not going to live in any fear that someone's going to push me around if I have not received a proper cease and desist. So then, of course, as you F around and do find out, I received that cease and desist, which again, anyone can order one of these up if you want to go on Fiverr and spend $25 or whatever the lawyers charge. But the point remains that I still have to take it seriously, even if she possibly isn't taking the legal system seriously herself. Either way, let's listen to what Ben and Ashley had to say regarding Clayton's scandal. I will pause where I feel like they might have gotten something wrong, because at this point, we're all about correcting what is right and wrong and just getting down to the truth. All right, let's have a listen here. We're buffering. And by the way, there's 90% of this podcast is advertisements.
Reveals results of paternity test following woman's lawsuit. This according to E.
Did you watch his reaction video?
I did watch his reaction video.
And did you say, oh, this is cringe?
I mean, people were loving on it, weren't they?
People were also saying, good for you, but also the cringiest, just manner.
My thing with cringe is you don't get to call something cringe when they are the victim. I don't think you can call a victim cringe. Could you imagine if you take a different scenario where a lady gets her purse stolen in an alley and then she finds out who the person was that stole the purse and she goes, oh, I caught the guy who stole that purse. Woo, happy Friday. Oh my gosh, that response was so cringe. No, you can't do that. You can't do that with a victim. Clayton is a victim if all signs point to the truth being that he was set up and this wasn't sort of a paternity, if he wasn't the father.
Here's the thing.
Tone.
Yeah, I think it just feels, the tone felt weird the whole time.
You don't get to judge that, Ben.
Yeah, he's like so angry and hostile, which obviously, like, I've never been in a situation, nor could I be.
I get why he's mad. I get if this was all, a setup.
If you get why he's mad, you don't get to control how he responds. If he was
or if this was somebody going after him, I get why he was mad, but like.
No buts.
I guess for me, I would think that like if I was in that situation, the results, like there would be a relief and then there would be like a solemn like.
Okay, let's put Ben Higgins in that situation. Hey, Jane Doe, do you have any plans to be in Ben Higgins' neighborhood? Maybe you guys could meet up. No, you don't. You don't get to say I would react solemnly after 5 months. No. You don't. You just don't get to. Oh, wouldn't that be so nice to think you would act that way? As Dr. Diane Strakowski says, we love our Dr. Diane. She says, we're all like tea. We don't know what our flavor is until we're dropped in hot water. Clayton got dropped in hot water. He came out alive, and he's allowed to do a TikTok dance. Period.
Response, but he did. It did feel weird.
It just felt like he was celebrating a football game victory.
No.
That's okay. That's a good point. It felt like he was celebrating a victory, which in a sense it was. I don't know. I've never been there.
It was the biggest victory you could have. A football game, you always want to win, but your character is all that you have. It was the biggest victory he has ever won. One in which is not over, and he's still in court, and it could last a long time and cost him a lot of money. So when he's up at night wondering how he's going to pay his bills because he lost out on speaking engagements where he's speaking about mental health, where he's providing good bandwidth to the conversation, we don't get to decide how he responded. He did win. This was a big victory.
This is what he said, quote, and I'm going to just do a little bit of an impersonation. Listen, it's Friday, and you know what we need on Friday? We need some good news. Who's got the good news today? What's the good news, Clayton? Literally referring to himself in third person. Well, test results came back early, and they said there's no fetal DNA present. Let's go, baby.
I love how Clayton is held to a standard where he's supposed to respect this, even though it's possible that the person who may have made all of this up, allegedly, isn't held to that same standard. Now, I'm all about making fun in some aspects of Clayton's reaction. Like, we can roast him and have fun with it, but we can't judge him. And that's what Gabby Windy did. I would have done it differently if I was in this scenario, and that's what Ben Higgins is doing. Well, I would have been more solemn. I'm okay, and again, you might say, oh, Dave's pimping for Ashley here, because I do like Ashley. I'm okay with her sort of understanding she has never been in that position, and she doesn't know how she would react. But you guys, like, you gotta at least open with saying, man, he got royally effed. He's allowed to do this dance. Because that's the truth. He is allowed to.
Again, I still don't know. This whole thing was messy and weird from the very beginning, right? Like, there's been no process of this where it's made a lot of sense or we've gotten clarity. Like, the 5 months of torture that he's speaking of, if he had no sexual intercourse and sexual relations, then there is no torture.
I was going to say, Ben, if it was just an oral thing and there was no spermy in that area, how would you be even worried? How would you be worried at all?
All right, so look, it goes on, and I honestly don't want to play it any further because I will answer their questions. When you're being gaslighted into believing something is a reality, you start to go, well, maybe she is pregnant. She said she hasn't had sex with anybody else, and she's clearly pregnant because he's a normal person who believes her that yes. Now, look, I'm sucked into this, so not only, look, it's there. It's insulting is what it is to Clayton's intelligence to say, how could you let this happen? I wouldn't have. When neither of these co-hosts, along with anyone else who's covered this story, has been in this situation. So you have to really learn how to empathize with the situation because, like in my case, you have to go, all right, Dave makes content. He makes a decent amount of money. He makes a good living covering this, but now he's threatened with a lawsuit. His wife has to now wonder, will we have the revenue that's coming in? Are you doing something that's wrong? Why are you getting sued if you're not doing anything wrong? And again, I'm not trying to play a victim here. I'm just saying you have to understand when you're put through the legal system, you don't know what the solution will be. Did Clayton wonder if anyone would believe him after the last false accusation that was made against him? Did he wonder if the truth would ever come out there? He had to learn probably about all of the DNA testing and this and that, all of his angry messages, and he rightfully was angry at Jane Doe when he sent those messages. All came out at once. He did not get the first punch in. By the time he metaphorically punched back, she had already landed haymakers on him with the U.S. version of The Sun coming out, showing him saying, I don't want the kid. I want nothing to do with you. Again, and if you're someone who's assuming that he knocked somebody up, you'd say, wow, geez, Clayton, you're being a piece of shit right now. You got to own up to this. You know what I mean? But then when we look at it and get all the information, we realize he is a victim, and I can't shout it loud enough. I need a bullhorn to say, if this story is true and all signs point in that direction, a direction I'm not afraid of saying. There's a reason why other lawyers have fired Jane Doe. There's a reason why people haven't worked with her, and she has to go to some Fiverr version of a lawyer out there in a different state who has been, resigned from the bar in other states. We have an incredible amount of receipts regarding the lack of credibility that she is putting into this, an insult to those. And again, I cover this in part with passion because my mom was one who had to, use the legal system and who hasn't in order to, fight for her kids. And there's a system that is meant to protect children. There's a system that is meant to adjudicate issues amongst co-parenting duties and social welfare for, this system is supposed to help. And when someone takes a large shit all over the system, it clogs it up for the next person. Right. And we are in the aspect of this scenario where the toilet is now getting clogged. And I would prefer not to cover it with me being a section of the story. But this is where we are. So for all of the people, the hundreds that have joined the Patreon, that have supported what I hate to say and play that card, which is independent journalism, because that's what it is, because magazines are afraid to run with it because it doesn't benefit them to tell the truth. They don't want to deal with the lawsuits. They just wanted to print it when it was salacious towards Clayton. And now that he's missing out on work and following the story further, it is crickets out there. Well, we will not be part of the chorus of crickets. We will be part of the chorus shouting from rooftops when someone is innocent that we finish the dang story. It's not over yet, folks. Patreon.com/Dave Neal. I'll be live briefly today to discuss the cease and desist a little bit further. Thanks so much.